गोपीजनवल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजना यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजना यमुनातीरावनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी गोपीजनवल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजना यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजना यमुनातीरावनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय ओम श्रीपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य स्तोत्र सुषमदेश भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की इस्कॉन फाउंडर-आचार्य बीबीटी फाउंडर श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय ओम श्रीपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य स्तोत्र श्रीमद् भक्ति सिद्धांत ठाकुर श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय नामाचार्य श्री हरदास ठाकुर की जय प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय वृंदावन धाम की जय मायपुर नवद्वीप धाम की जय जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय गंगामय की जय यमुनामय की जय भक्ति देवी की जय तुलसी महारानी की जय समवेद गौर भक्त वृंद की जय ऑल ग्लोरीज टू assembled devotees हरे कृष्णा ऑल ग्लोरीज टू assembled devotees हरे कृष्णा ऑल ग्लोरीज टू assembled devotees हरे कृष्णा ओम अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिन्निति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नामने गौरत्विषे नमः। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण। Hare Krishna. Okay, so we'll discuss something on this quality of simplicity. There are two important aspects of simplicity that the Shastras, the Acharyas, and Srila Prabhupada presents. So, one aspect of simplicity which Srila Prabhupada put even within the 7 purposes of ISKCON, and that is what? Yes, simple living and high thinking. So on that point of simple living, we'll read something from Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd canto, 2nd chapter. So there is this series of verses which Shukdev Goswami is speaking, 3rd, 4th, 5th, which are talking about simple life. Of course, what Shukdev Goswami is speaking here cannot be imitated, but we can at least understand the principle. So 2 to 3. Krishna. So the verse says, Ata kavinam asuyavadartha syada pramatto vyavasaya buddhi siddhe anyatharthe nayate tatra parishramam tatra samikshamanaha. For this reason, the enlightened person should endeavor only for the minimum necessities of life while in the world of names. He should be intelligently fixed and never endeavor for unwanted things, being competent to perceive practically that all such endeavors are merely hard labor for nothing. So those who are kavi, enlightened persons, yavat artha syat apramattaha. So yavat artha, whatever is minimally required for one's sustenance, apramatta, without being mad after all these material things. So Srila Prabhupada writes in his purport that those, I'm just reading a few important statements. Those who are captivated by the illusory advancement of material civilization, following the way of phantasmagoria, are certainly madmen. So therefore the word is saying pramatta. The whole material creation is a jugglery of names only. In fact, it is nothing but a bewildering creation of matter like earth, water and fire. Buildings, furniture, cars, bungalows, mills, factories, industries, peace, war, or even the highest perfection of material science, namely atomic energy and electronics, are all simply bewildering names of material elements with their concomitant reactions of the 3 modes. So, since the devotee of the Lord knows them perfectly well, he is not interested in creating unwanted things for a situation which is not at all reality, but simply names of no more significance than the babble of sea waves. So sea waves, they come and they go. Come. Nothing is permanent. So similarly, everything of this material world's phantasmagoria. So there could be so many impressive things of this material world which they're trying to create, but ultimately everything is simply temporary. It's going to disappear. And so therefore, Srila Prabhupada says, great kings, leaders, soldiers fight with one another in order to perpetuate their names in history. They are forgotten in due course of time, and they make a place for another era in history. But the devotee realizes how much history and historical persons are useless products of flickering time. When Srila Prabhupada went to France, he saw the statue of Napoleon. He said, well, they say Napoleon is France and France is Napoleon. France is still here, but where's Napoleon? Right. So that's reality. The fruitive worker aspires after a big fortune in the matter of wealth, women, worldly adoration. But those who are fixed in perfect reality are not all interested in such false things. For them, it is all a waste of time. And therefore, further down he says, the civilization which aims at this utmost perfection, that is self-realization, never indulges in creating unwanted things, and such a perfect civilization prepares men only to accept the bare necessities of life or to follow the principle of the best use of a bad bargain. Quite a few places Srila Prabhupada uses the phrase that modern day people are creating unnecessary necessities. Unnecessary necessities. So that means what? That means they imagine them to be necessities, but actually they are not. Srila Prabhupada gives example in his lectures that just like smoking cigarettes. So he says, so one learns these things by bad association. Otherwise, no child is born with the habit of smoking. Correct. So therefore, these are unnecessary necessities. Another point Srila Prabhupada makes is that usually we find that advertisements in this world are for what? What do we find? Advertisements for what we find?
To attract us towards...
No, we are not asking why. What type of advertisements do we find in this world?
Email.
For what?
For any product.
Give some examples.
Cement.
Okay, cement. Pipes.
Everything.
Clothes.
Accessories.
Yes, so many accessories. Cars, mobiles, laptops. How many places do we find advertisement for rice, dal, edible oils, or fruits? So how many places do we find advertisements for these things? So advertisements are required. Why? Because they are unnecessary necessities. So therefore, to convince people that they are necessities, even though they are unnecessary, therefore there are advertisements. To somehow convince people that even though they are not necessities, but still they are necessary. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada is writing, our material bodies and our lives in that connection are bad bargains, because the living entity is actually spirit, and spiritual advancement of the living entity is absolutely necessary. Human life is intended for the realization of this important factor, and one should act accordingly, accepting only the bare necessities of life and depending more on God's gifts without diversion of human energy for any other purpose, such as being mad for material enjoyment. Okay? And then the next verses are also talking about the same subject matter of simple living and high thinking. Okay? So this is one aspect of simplicity. Now we will go to some other aspect of simplicity. In the Bhagavad Gita, 13th chapter, verses 8 to 12. What are these verses talking about?
Jnanam.
Yes, Jnanam. amanitvam, adambitvam. So, ahimsa, shantir, arjavam. So arjavam means simplicity. And so here Srila Prabhupada is giving a definition of simplicity. And what is that? Simplicity means that without diplomacy, simplicity means that without diplomacy, one should be so straightforward that he can disclose the real truth even to an enemy. So this is the definition of simplicity Srila Prabhupada is giving. Okay? If you can memorize it, it's very good. And if you can apply it, that's better. So that's the definition of simplicity. Arjavam. Anybody knows where else this word Arjavam comes in the Bhagavad Gita? 16th chapter, verses 1 to 3, where Krishna is talking about Deva Sampat, divine qualities. And here also, in the list of divine qualities, one of the qualities is Arjavam. And here, these qualities in these 3 verses are being grouped according to Varna and Ashram. Okay, so for each of the ashrams and each of the varnas, there are certain specific qualities. Regarding Arjavam, that is simplicity, Srila Prabhupada writes in his purport, as far as the Brahmanical quality of simplicity is concerned, so it's a Brahmanical quality, but still, not only should a particular order of life follow this principle, but every member, be he in the Brahmacharya ashram, Grihastha ashram, Vanaprastha ashram, or Sannyasa ashram. So this quality of simplicity is meant for all the ashrams, for everyone. One should be very simple and straightforward. So the quality of simplicity is meant for everyone. Though it is essentially a Brahmanical quality, but still it is meant for everyone. Now, one more place where Krishna is speaking about Arjavam is actually we just said it. Prabhupada has just written. Yes, Brahmanical qualities. Yes, and the Brahmanical qualities, that is 18. Yes. So, Shamodamastapa Shaucham Shantir Arjavam Evasha Jnanam Vijnanam Astikyam Brahma Karma Swabhavajam. So here also Arjavam, which is essentially a Brahmanical quality. And here Srila Prabhupada translates Arjavam as honesty, which is also quite similar to being truthful. Okay. So since Srila Prabhupada is sort of using the word Arjavam, simplicity, as truthfulness, so then we will also see what is meant by truthfulness. And that is explained in the 10th chapter, 5th verse. So these are a list of qualities which are all created by the Supreme Lord. And one of them is Satyam. Kshama, Satyam, Dhamma, Kshama. 5th verse. So here, Srila Prabhupada translates, defines Satyam as, Satyam, truthfulness, means that facts should be presented as they are for the benefit of others. Facts should not be misrepresented. According to social conventions, it is said that one can speak the truth only when it is palatable to others. As it is said, Satyam Briyat, Priyam Briyat. But that is not truthfulness, Prabhupada says. Just to present something which is palatable is not truthfulness. The truth should be spoken in a straightforward way so that others will understand actually what the facts are. If a man is a thief, and if people are warned that he is a thief, that is truth. Or as sometimes the English saying goes, call a spade a spade. One should not refrain from speaking it. Truthfulness demands that the facts be presented as they are for the benefit of others. That is the definition of truth. All right? And so, but speaking the truth is always not so easy. And so therefore, Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, 17th chapter, 15th verse, anybody knows what is 17th chapter, 15th verse? That is austerity of speech. And there also, he says, Satyam, that is an austerity. To speak the truth only on the basis of scriptures. Swadhyaya vyasnam chaiva. Satyam, priyam. So one has to present the truth. That's an austerity. Amongst the four principles of dharma, it is said in Kali Yuga only one is remaining. That is Satyam, truthfulness. That also is fast dwindling, but some truthfulness is still there. We had one experience on book distribution. So, quite an amazing experience. So a man, he took a book, he took a Bhagavad Gita, and so usually many people are there around the book table and people are taking, and these days there's also online payment. So some people give cash, some people pay online. So one man came back the next day and he said, I forgot whether I paid or not. That's quite rare, isn't it? Most people would be happy if they could get away without paying. But this man came back and he said, I forgot whether I paid or not. What should I do? So we said, it's up to you. We just said, we are dependent on donations, so up to you what you want to do. Anyway, the man paid again. So some truthfulness is still remaining. That's what I could understand from that incident, that some truthfulness is still remaining. But otherwise, Krishna himself is saying that being truthful is an austerity. And of course, there are other purports in the 8th canto where Srila Prabhupada says that in the present age of Kali Yuga, a person is ready to speak a lie at the drop of a hat. That means speaking lies has become so common. So that situation of Kali Yuga. So therefore, speaking the truth is an austerity. So therefore, as we have seen two aspects of simplicity. And one is, what? One is, without diplomacy, one should be ready to speak the truth even to an enemy. That's one aspect. That is, no diplomacy or no duplicity, and speaking the truth in a straightforward way. That's one aspect. And the other aspect is? The other aspect is, we read from the second canto.
Living simply.
Yes, living in a simple way without too much extravagance and, as we were discussing, unnecessary necessities. So that's the other aspect. So we'll discuss both the aspects. So first let's talk about this simple living. Of course, here in these verses in the second canto, Shukdev Goswami is speaking about what's the need of a pillow if one can sleep on one's hands, using one's palms. What's the need of a pot to drink water? One can use one's hands. So like that, he's giving so many examples. We cannot imitate that. But the essential principle is of trying to use the bare necessities. Srila Prabhupada told two stories about simplicity. One story he told is about this Brahman in Krishna Nagar, and there was the king sort of zamindar of Krishna Nagar. His name was Krishnananda Rai. And so once he was touring his kingdom, and then he saw this house, small hut of this poor Brahmana. And so he went into that house, and there was this Brahmana couple living there. So he asked them, so you seem to be so poor, you don't have much. Can I help you with some wealth or whatever you need? So the man said, no, we are satisfied. So as Brahmanas, profession of Brahmanas is basically to teach. So he said, I teach, I have a few students, and the students go and collect some rice. So they bring back the rice, raw rice, and then my wife cooks the rice, and then here is a tamarind tree, and so we pluck some tamarind leaves and mix it with the rice, and that's what we have. We are satisfied. We don't want anything. How many of us will be able to live like that? Anyway, Prabhupada tells the story. Understand the principle. Prabhupada tells another story from his own personal experience when he was staying in Prayag. As we know, he had Prayag pharmacy. So beside his house, there was a house of a Brahmana couple. And so this Brahmana couple, they would rise early in the morning and they would go to take bath in the Sangam, and they would come back, and the wife would be doing her household chores, and the man would be studying the scriptures, doing his puja and all that, and which went on for a very long time. Almost till afternoon, he would be doing all these Brahmanical activities. And so that would be almost till lunchtime. So in the meantime, the wife would prepare the lunch and all that. So at lunchtime, they would have lunch. Then after lunch, short nap. Then after the nap, the wife would prepare, or both of them together, they would prepare a number of eatables. And in the evening time, so around that area there were many colleges, and young college students like to eat a lot, different varieties of foodstuff. And so they would prepare all these varieties of eatables, and then just in front of the house, sort of a small shop, and they would sell all those eatables there, and all these students would come buy those eatables, and so they would do their business till about 9:30, and that's it. That was how they would earn. Nothing else. Simple life, satisfied. So these are the examples Prabhupada gave. And so therefore, this simplicity, as Srila Prabhupada is writing, is an essential quality of the Brahmanas. But of course, as we read, that in general also, human beings should focus essentially on what? We just read. On what? Self-realization. The goal of human life essentially is self-realization. Athato Brahma Jigyasa. That's meant for all human beings. And so therefore one should not waste time in trying to acquire so many of these material things. But of course it especially applies to Brahmanas. The others like Kshatriyas and Vaishyas may have a little more opulent lifestyle, but Brahmanas especially are meant to lead very simple lives. So now, so if one has to lead an opulent life, then obviously so much time will be wasted in getting all these artificial needs. And then one will not get sufficient time for self-realization. And so therefore, in the Upadeshamrit, Srila Rupa Goswami, in the second verse, what he says? Atyahara prayas. So atyahar means? Meaning of atyahar? Yes, eating more than necessary and collecting more than necessary. So if one wants to collect too many things, more than necessary, then obviously some prayas will be required. One has to endeavor. Nothing is going to come free of cost. So one has to endeavor if one wants to collect more things. So there also Srila Prabhupada is explaining that how one should have a simple life and all that. So now, regarding this aspect of simple living, why should one be, especially as devotees, and it applies so much to devotees who are essentially trying to lead a Brahminical life, correct? As devotees, we are all trying to lead a Brahminical life. So definitely it applies so much to devotees. So it reminds me of one pastime of Srila Prabhupada. So Srila Prabhupada, for taking a bath, he would use a metal bucket. So the metal bucket got dented, somehow it got bent. And one devotee happened to see that. And so the devotee thought, why is Srila Prabhupada using this old one? I'll get a new one. So he purchased a new bucket and he gave it to the servant and told him to place it in the bathroom. So he gave it to the servant just before Srila Prabhupada, as we know, after his massage, he would take his bath. So just at that time, he gave the bucket. And he was waiting outside to see what would be Srila Prabhupada's reaction. And obviously, he was expecting some glorification and praise for getting the new bucket. So Srila Prabhupada took his bath, and as soon as he came out, he called his servant and he asked him, so who got the new bucket? So the servant said, such and such devotee. So Srila Prabhupada, call him. Okay, he was just waiting outside. And he was expecting some praise. So the devotee came in. Srila Prabhupada said, who asked you to get the new bucket? So the devotee said, Srila Prabhupada, I saw that your bucket was dented. It seemed to be old. So I thought I could replace it with a new one. Srila Prabhupada said, there was no need. The bucket was doing the job. There was no need for a new one. Who told you to get a new one? That was the reaction. And there's another pastime right here in Vrindavan. Shrutakirti Prabhu tells about the monkey chewing Srila Prabhupada's slippers. So in a long pastime, he tells how the monkey took the slipper, Srila Prabhupada tried to get it back, but then the monkey took the slipper on the terrace, Radha Damodar, in his rooms. So he took the slipper to the terrace, and anyway, then he started chewing on the slipper, but then Shrudikirti Prabhu was quite desperate to get it back. And so somehow there was one small boy, son of a devotee, who came there, and then Shrudikirti Prabhu gave some bananas, and then he took the bananas, managed to. But by the time, the monkey had sufficiently chewed on the slippers. But in any case, Shrudikirti Prabhu managed to get them back and gave them to Srila Prabhupada. And so Srila Prabhupada looked at them and said, well, the upper portion has become a little loose, you just fix it and then I can use it. So he got the upper portion which was loose, he got a little fixed. And then Srila Prabhupada was wearing those slippers chewed by the monkey. So that's how Srila Prabhupada led a very simple life. So now the question is, so what are some of the reasons why we should lead a simple life and not be too extravagant, trying to get too many things? So what are some of the reasons? Let's hear before we speak something from the Bhagavatam. Yes, anyone on site, online?
Saves us from the anxiety.
Okay, saves us from, just one second. Saves us from anxiety of what?
Of endeavor and thinking of it.
Okay, saves us from a lot of anxiety, endeavor, trying to get so many things. Okay. Okay, online somebody was going to say something.
Saves time.
That volume needs to be.
Sorry?
Oh, yes, what's that?
We won't be able to focus.
Won't be
Able to focus.
Won't be able to focus.
Won't be able to focus. Don't reduce this volume, the other one. Okay, so we will not be able to focus on Krishna consciousness. That's right. Okay, any other reasons?
Saves some time.
Okay.
Saves a lot of time.
Yes, saves a lot of time. So what to do with the time?
We have to practice Krishna consciousness.
Okay, so utilize the time for practicing Krishna consciousness. Okay. Any other reasons?
It also decides when you absorb yourself.
Okay, decides where we absorb ourselves. That's correct.
It creates anxiety in people when they have properties and they are afraid they'll be stolen.
Right, so much of fear, anxiety. As I said, possession is pain.
Also this sense of possessiveness.
Yes.
It enhances the false ego.
Mm.
The more you have, the more you feel great.
Yes, sense of possessiveness. I have so much. So makes one feel great. Okay, so we'll read a few points from the conversation between Bali Maharaj and Vaman Dev. We know the pastime of how Lord Vaman Dev went to the sacrifice of Bali Maharaj. Bali Maharaj was happy to see this Brahmana. And he said, what do you want? And Lord Vaman Dev said, I want 3 steps of land. And then Bali Maharaj says, what? I'm emperor of this entire universe. And you're asking 3 steps of land, and that too, your small steps? I can give you islands, I can give you so much of gold and wealth and whatever you want, I can give. You seem to be less intelligent. What's the problem? So now, in reply to this, Lord Vamandev tells something which is very important for all of us. So this is 8th canto, 19th chapter, text 21 onwards, a few verses. So he says, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Yamanto Vishaya Preshtas Trilokyam Ajitendriyam Na Shaknuvanti Te Sarve Prati Purayutum Nripa. So he says, Trilokyam Ajitendriyam Na Shaknuvanti. The personality of God said, oh my dear king, even the entirety of whatever there may be within 3 worlds to satisfy one's senses cannot satisfy a person whose senses are uncontrolled. So if one is ajitendriya, uncontrolled senses, even if he is given trilokyam, the three worlds, he is not going to be satisfied. As Srila Prabhupada says in the lectures, a person who is greedy, uncontrolled senses, even if he has 20 factories, he'll be still planning for the 21st. So that's the nature of greed, never satisfied. So then, in the next verse, therefore he says, if I were not satisfied with 3 paces of land, then surely I would not be satisfied even with possessing one of the 7 islands consisting of 9 varshas. Even if I possess one island, I would hope to get others. That's the nature of greed. So even if you give me one island, I will not be satisfied. And therefore, he says in the 24th verse, Yadrichayopapannena santushto vartate sukham na santushtas tribi loker ajitatmo pasadite. So he has used this word yadrichaya. In the series of verses, he has used this word yadrichaya at least 3 or 4 times. So yadrichaya means what?
As offered.
Yes, Prabhupada translates it as offered by the supreme authority according to one's karma. According to one's karma, whatever one has got, be satisfied. Don't hanker for more. Even if one hankers, even if one tries, one is still going to get only as much as is ordained by one's karma. And Srila Prabhupada's simple example, every person is working hard to earn more wealth, correct? In those days, Srila Prabhupada said, everyone is trying to become Tata Birla. Maybe these days Tata Birlas are not so famous. Now, the richest persons in India and in Asia is the Ambanis. So they have private jets and helicopters and all that. So everyone is trying to become Ambani. Everyone is working hard. Does everyone become? No. The Ambanis may be working much less than these other people. It's simply karma. One cannot change. So therefore, he says, one should be satisfied with whatever he achieves by his previous destiny, for discontent can never bring happiness. If one is asantushta, then no sukham. A person who is not self-controlled will not be happy even with possessing the 3 worlds. Just quoting from Prahlad Maharaj that how whatever sukha dukkha one is destined to get, one will get that much only. One cannot change it. So therefore we also have the famous verse from Narad Muni's instructions to Vyasadeva. 1st canto, 5th chapter, text 18. What is that? Famous verse. Tasyeva heto prayate takovida na labhyate yag brahmatam upari adha talabhyate dukkavad anyatha sukham kalena sarvatra gavir ramhasa. So therefore, one who's Kovida does not endeavor for those things one will not get even by traveling through all the planetary systems. Because whatever, just like one gets dukkha without asking, so similarly whatever sukha one is destined, one will get. So therefore in this purport Prabhupada is writing, according to Brahmanical culture, one should be content with whatever he obtains without special endeavor and should cultivate spiritual consciousness. Okay, this is especially for those who are trying to practice Brahmanical culture. Then he will be happy. The purpose of the Krishna Consciousness movement, Prabhupada is writing, the purpose of the Krishna Consciousness movement is to spread this understanding. What understanding? What understanding? One should be content with whatever he obtains without special endeavor. Prayas. Okay. And the next verse he says, again in the next verse, again he uses the word yadrichayopapannena. Same word. Material existence causes discontent in regard to fulfilling one's lusty desires and achieving more and more money. This is the cause for the continuation of material life, which is full of repeated birth and death. But one who is satisfied by that which is obtained by destiny is fit for liberation from this material existence. Santosha muktaye smritaha. Okay, so if one is satisfied, then one can focus on self-realization, one can focus on Krishna consciousness, then one can get mukti. Otherwise, one will be bound. Now, the last verse which he is speaking, very important. This is especially for Brahmanas. So what he says, again the same word. Yadricha labatushtasya tejo viprasya vardate tat prashamyatya asantoshad ambha seva shushukshani. Yadricha labha tushtasya. So if one is tushta, satisfied with what one gets by destiny, what is the result? Tejo viprasya vardate. The Vipra means Brahmana. Teja means Teja. Effulgence. So if one is satisfied with what one gets by destiny, so the Brahmana's Teja will increase. Good, right? Brahmanas will become more effulgent. Of course, here the word Teja does not refer to simply the effulgence, but it refers towards that Srila Prabhupada in the translation is saying. What is the meaning of Teja? So in the translation, Prabhupada writes, a Brahmana who is satisfied with whatever is providentially obtained is increasingly enlightened with spiritual power. That is what we are interested in, right? Not some bodily Teja. The most important thing is the spiritual power. That is what increases when one is satisfied. But the spiritual potency of a dissatisfied Brahmana decreases, is giving analogy. Ambhasa iva ashushukshani. As fire diminishes in potency when water is sprinkled upon it. So if the Brahmana is satisfied, spiritual power increases. If Brahmana is dissatisfied, spiritual power reduces. Why? What's the connection?
Well, obviously you lose the focus.
Right, exactly. So basically, if one has so many material desires, so many material wants, the mind is wandering all over the place, so one cannot focus on one's Krishna consciousness. So I think so we all have that experience. If we're chanting our japa and the mind is hooked on to some need or want, then what happens during the entire japa? We are thinking about that one thing. The mind is focused on that one thing. I want this, I want this, I want this. So then one cannot focus on the chanting. So that's what happens. And then of course so much of endeavor to attain those things. So that is why the spiritual power reduces. And then finally, Lord Vamadev concludes by saying, therefore, O king, from you, the best of those who give charity, I ask only 3 paces of land. By such a gift, I shall be very pleased. For the way of happiness is to be fully satisfied to receive that which is absolutely needed. So that's one understanding of simplicity. That is simple living. Be satisfied with what comes by destiny. No need to endeavor too much for unnecessary necessities. All right? So now we go to the other understanding. So how much time do we have?
There's 25 minutes left.
Okay, so almost half an hour. Good. So now we go to the other understanding of simplicity, which is? Yes, no duplicity, being truthful.
Speak truth to the enemy.
Yes, even to the enemy. And so in that connection, so Srila Prabhupada, I will take questions a little bit later. So in that connection, Srila Prabhupada tells the well-known pastime of Bhishma Dev and the 5 arrows. We know that pastime? Bhishma Dev had, so they were accusing Bhishma Dev of not, the Kauravas were accusing Bhishma Dev of not fighting because of his affection for the Pandavas. So then Bhishma Dev said, okay, I'll keep 5 arrows to finish off the Pandavas next day. And then, of course, Krishna knows everything. So Krishna understood. And then Krishna told Arjuna, you go and get those 5 arrows. So Duryodhana had once promised a boon when he was captured by the Gandharvas. So Arjuna went, he asked for the 5 arrows. So of course that was the Vedic culture. So the Kshatriyas, even though daytime they were fighting, nighttime hospitality. So then Arjuna goes, Duryodhana, what do you want? You want kingdom? I'm ready to give. No. I want those 5 arrows which you kept aside. Just imagine, Duryodhana, as we know, person of degraded character, right? According to Vedic standards. But even such a person, when Arjuna asked for the 5 arrows, without any argument, that's Vedic culture. So that's basically what Prabhupada is writing. Being truthful even to enemy. So Duryodhana didn't say, oh, which 5 arrows? I don't know. Maybe some of us would have said like that, isn't it? But even such a person as Duryodhana, without a second word, just gave those 5 arrows. So, and when just one example came to mind regarding simple living from the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and we have the two examples, 2 very famous examples for absolutely simple living. Any guesses? Yes, Kolavecha Sridhar. So we all know absolute poverty, literally. So the only possession he had was a dented iron pot which is used for everything, which even the most desperate thief would not try to steal. But still, Mahaprabhu said, you have the greatest wealth and I will reveal it one day. Kolavecha Sridhar would say, what do I have? I have nothing. What wealth do I have? No, you have the greatest wealth. I'll reveal it. What was the greatest wealth he had? Krishna Prem. That's what he had. So he had pure devotion to Krishna. And of course, during the Mahaprakash Leela, then Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed that. So anyway, that's a good example. And also we have the other example of Shuklambar Brahmachari, who was also very simple and had nothing practically. So that's a good point, that a devotee is not after material wealth or material reputation. In fact, Sridhar, nobody even knew him during the Mahaprakash Leela when Mahaprabhu told the devotees, go and get Sridhar. Which Sridhar? Nobody knew him. Then Mahaprabhu said, okay, go in that direction wherever you hear the loud chanting of the holy names. So he had nothing material, but still he had the greatest wealth of pure devotional service. And I think so that's a good lesson for us as devotees in connection to that aspect of simplicity. So in any case, so now since we're talking about this aspect of simplicity, of no duplicity and being truthful, now again, during the Mahaprakash Leela, Mahaprabhu showed his displeasure towards another one of his associates who was showing some duplicity. Who was that? Yes, Mukunda. So what was Mukunda doing? Yes, so he was a very good singer and Mahaprabhu was very pleased with his singing. So when devotees saw that Mahaprabhu is not calling Mukunda, they were concerned. They asked, Mahaprabhu, why not calling Mukunda? He was standing in one corner, very sad. Mahaprabhu said, no, I will not give him my mercy because he acts in duplicitous ways. In the association of devotees, he behaves like a very nice devotee, very humble. But then he goes to the Mayavadis and hears from the Mayavadis. So Mahaprabhu says it is just like taking straw between the teeth and offering obeisances, and then taking an iron rod and hitting on my head. I will not give him my mercy. And then we know the pastime. So Mukunda asked, but will Mahaprabhu never give his mercy? Only after 10 million births. And Mukunda starts dancing in ecstasy. Yes, after 10 million births. That's another example of patience. But in any case, that's an example of duplicity. That's an example of duplicity. So, therefore, it's very important that one is loyal and chaste to one's own acharya and one's own philosophy. So, as we were discussing yesterday in the Bhakti Vaibhav class also, not that one is in ISKCON and then, especially here in Vrindavan, one goes to this Baba and that Bapu and this one and that one and here's this and here's that and still is within ISKCON. No. So then that will be considered duplicitous. So one has to have loyalty to one's own acharya and the acharyas within the sampradaya that we are connected to and to whom we are grateful. So that's an example of duplicity. Not being simple, not being chaste, not being truthful. So then of course the principle also applies to Shastras. Then one should stick to the Shastras given by our acharyas and not go on nectar shopping. Okay, so now two questions. So what is as devotees, what is the importance of simplicity, or what would be the consequences of duplicity? Duplicity basically, as we know, means crooked behavior. Inside something, outside something. So that's duplicitous behavior. So what would be the consequences of such duplicity and not having simplicity? Right, any thoughts? Yes.
Let's say, normally we have desires. And we offer our prayers to the Lord daily that we become pure. But if we are not simple and we are duplicitous, so what happens is like even the desires which we are offering to the Lord, I mean, it will be a kind of mixed desire. So at times we find that, especially with me, that I make a lot of prayers, but a lot of prayers are not being reciprocated from the Lord because the heart is not pure. So if we don't practice this in our life, in all the aspects, from morning to evening, so it would be very difficult for us to really offer the real truth desires, prayers to the Lord.
Okay, so basically what you're trying to say is that so if we have material desires within our practice of devotional service, then we will not be able to be sincere in offering prayers. Okay, fine. So, okay, that could be an example of something duplicitous. Yes, Mother.
For oneself, I think if we are duplicitous, we are not able to go deeper. We are not able to access the deeper truths of the Shastras. Because you remain at the superficial level. You are just at the surface searching for something. And another aspect is that it is also disturbing the faith of others in the society.
Okay, so you're saying that if one is duplicitous, then so basically we will not have deeper realizations in our practice of devotional service, and that is basically because the Lord is displeased. Right, and that, okay, and then that also disturbs others because others see duplicitous behavior in others. That disturbs their faith. That's correct. Good points. Online, somebody would like to say something?
We lose the association of devotees.
Was that?
We lose the association.
We lose the association of devotees. Why?
It is a very temporary thing. At the beginning, it may be things might be work out, but the end we will lose everything.
Mm-hmm.
The association and goodwill we are gaining over it. Even though we have lot of skills and lot of practice to serve Krishna, but everything will be ruined at the end.
Okay, fine. So duplicitous behavior will ultimately displease Guru and Krishna, so therefore we may lose everything. Okay. That's
Another point is we will not receive Guru's mercy, Mahaprabhu's mercy. Actually, mercy is the path through which we can achieve our goal. Belongs to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sampradaya.
Okay, so basically we will not be able to achieve our goal. Yes, if we have sort of duplicitous behavior. Yes.
We will, the advancement, our advancement depends on our attitude. So our attitude will never become up to the mark.
Okay, so we'll not have the right attitude. Okay, fine. And Srila Prabhupada has written in the preface to the Nectar of Instruction, advancement in Krishna consciousness depends upon the attitude of the follower. Okay. So yes, all these are important points, and so basically our own progress in Krishna consciousness will be checked because Guru and Krishna are displeased with the duplicitous behavior and not being simple and truthful, and that will also set the wrong example, and others will not be inspired by our behavior in devotional service. Right. So I would like to read a few points from a book of His Holiness Gaur Govind Swami Maharaj entitled Trinadapi Sunichena, where he speaks on this topic. So, as we definitely must have heard the quote from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Saralta e Vaishnavata. Vaishnava means he is supposed to be saral, simple. So Gaur Govind Maharaj, he says, the question is raised. For many, many years one has stayed in the matha, in the Guru's ashram, in the temple, associating with sadhus, Vaishnavas, listening to Harikatha, rendering so many services. Still, why isn't he making any progress on the spiritual path? Why is there no progress at all? And he says in answer to that, it said, the person is not a simple-hearted person. He's just outwardly doing all these things. Staying in the temple, in the ashram for so many years, rendering so many services, engaged in so many activities. Such a great worker, great devotee, great servant. He's doing so much service, but in his heart he is not at all simple. There is duplicity, complexity, or crookedness in his heart. Therefore, he cannot make any progress in spite of all such things. He cannot make any progress in the spiritual path. Devotion will not increase. Jiva Goswami Prabhu has said this in Bhakti Sandarbha. And then he's giving a nice example. We all know this example. The example of Duryodhana. Of course, we gave the example for another reason. But he's giving the example. As we know the pastime, Krishna went as peace messenger. And at that time, what Duryodhana did?
He tried to capture.
Okay, he tried to capture him. But before that, what he did?
Called him for the
Yes, he called him for a big feast. He called him for a big feast. As if he loved Krishna so much. But what was his inner motive? To get something from him. That's the example he's giving. So, he had crooked motives. And Krishna, of course, understood that. So, therefore, no appetites. It's all. And he went away. He never touched it because Duryodhana is not a simple-hearted person. He's a crooked person, duplicitous person. There's duplicity. So, in other words, he's not a Vaishnava. Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Krishna Prabhupada Maharaj. Vaishnavatva. Simplicity is Vaishnavism. One who is not simple is never Vaishnava. Though outwardly he may be posing himself as Vaishnava, but if there's no simplicity in his heart, he is never actually a Vaishnava. So having something inside, something outside. One who is not simple cannot accept Guru as Mukunda Preshta, very dear, intimate associate of Krishna. He cannot accept this. He accepts Guru as an ordinary human being because of his duplicitous nature. And therefore, he's quoting the verse, Acharimam Vijaniya Navamaniyeta Karishit Na Martya Buddhya Ayus Asuyeta Sarvadeva Mayo Guru. So he will not be able to follow this because of his duplicitous nature. And so now he gives an example of duplicitous nature, a very practical example, which could be there at different levels, but yes, it's a good example. I mean, we may not exhibit duplicity like Duryodhana to that extent, but this is something which is more practical and which we could sort of introspect. He says, many people are coming and many devotees are here in the Matha of the temple, in the ashram for so many years listening to Harikatha. But really, in whose ears is this Harikatha entering? How many are hearing? One who is really simple-hearted person, who has no complexity, no duplicity, who never thinks that spiritual master is an ordinary person, he listens. Harikatha enters into his ears. Otherwise, although outwardly he may be sitting and hearing, but he is not hearing. Harikatha is not entering into his ears. Because he is not a simple-hearted person, he is a duplicitous person, crooked-hearted person. So, I think that this is something which we do observe sometimes. There are people sitting in classes, and especially these days, we do find some people, some devotees sitting in classes because maybe they're supposed to be there, or at least people will think them to be sincere, so they're sitting. But now they have what?
Mobile phone.
They have their mobile and they're doing their own things and simply making a pretense of listening. Correct? These days we see it quite often, unfortunately. So then the Harikatha is not actually entering into the ear. Then how will the purification take place? He's simply being duplicitous. He's making a show of hearing, but actually he's not hearing. And the same thing applies to japa also. So we see people, one hand bead bag, one hand mobile. And so what are they hearing? They're making a show of chanting and having finished 16 rounds, but they have not heard the Harinam and Harikatha. Then how will the heart become purified? So, he says, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada Maharaj and all Mahajans have said the same thing. Maya is so strong. Devesha Gunamaya Mamaya Durtya. Maya is attracting us in so many ways and in so many forms. We are attracted towards Maya, we are not attracted towards Krishna because we are not simple-hearted persons, we're crooked persons. The most dangerous moment is the moment that we have no protector. Everybody will be your enemy at that moment. Who will protect you? So, this is one example he's giving. Though outwardly posing, he cannot associate with the Vaishnava sadhu, Harikatha will never enter into his ear. He really cannot serve a sadhu or guru. He's attracted towards Maya. And so therefore then he's quoting the verse which we know. Vaishnava mukodginam puta harikatha amritam shravanam na kartavyam sarpochishta payayatha. So as we were discussing that point also, that not that one is within ISKCON, and then one is just hearing anything and everything. So then that's also duplicity. And then he's also talking about, yes, then the aparads. Then as we know, the root cause of all offenses is? Yes, inattentive hearing. So then that's the results. Because the Harikatha does not enter into the ear, then the heart is not purified, then then so many offenses. So therefore, he says, be simple as a child. So he gives another practical example of duplicitous behavior. So he says, just like, he gives two examples. I'll give one which may be more applicable for us. So he says, just like in a class, if there's a teacher teaching mathematics or whatever, and there are students, small children, and after teaching, the teacher asks, so how many of you have understood? Or has anyone not understood? Then what happens? Nobody raises the hand. So even though some students may not have understood, they don't raise the hand. Why?
Because they want class to be rude.
Okay, that could be one reason. But what's a deeper reason? Yes. Then other students will think this student is less intelligent. Reputation. What will happen to my reputation? So he does not raise the hand, he does not clear his doubts. Then what happens? Yes, thank you for a Shastra quotation. But as far as that student studying mathematics is concerned, what will happen to him? He fails the exam because he has not understood, but he has pretended to have understood. So yes, and from a spiritual perspective, that's correct. Samshayatma vinashyati. So, and he gives another example also, and maybe we have experienced that also. So he says, so just like we're sitting for prasadam, and say they are serving unlimited gulab jamuns. Usually it doesn't happen, but hypothetically, they're serving unlimited gulab jamuns. And so initially, okay, they serve 2. Then he comes around once, 3rd one, 4th one. And my mind is saying, this is my favorite item, I want to eat 1 dozen. But after the 4th one, when the 5th one comes, what is one thinking? So one is sitting together with other devotees. So then what one thinks?
I'll pack.
Okay, packing not allowed.
I want to eat more, but these people will think that.
So immediately the thought comes, what this person will say.
The brahmachari eating so much sweet.
What will this person say? This person is a glutton. He's so greedy for eating. So even though he has a desire to eat, but still for the sake of reputation, he makes a show. Of course, that does not mean that one listens to the mind and eats as many. So, but the point is, what's the motive? So one can refuse with the right motive also, that I'm sincerely trying to make progress, so therefore I want to stop. But the other motive, a wrong motive could be that what will happen to my pratishtha. And so therefore, he says that one of the prime causes for kapatya, duplicity, one of the prime causes is pratisthasha. One of the prime causes for kapatya or duplicitous behavior is pratisthasha. So therefore he says, Mahaprabhu is patit pavan, but he is not kapat pavan. So another nice example he says is, one who's really sleeping very easily can be awakened, but one who is pretending to sleep cannot be awakened. I think so, we all have experience. So, right. So therefore he makes quite a strong statement. He says, if it is required to go to hell by following and executing Guru and Gauranga's order as it is, we are prepared to go to hell, but we will not practice any sort of duplicity in it. If a crooked person goes to Brahmaloka, to the planet where Brahma stays, still he cannot be delivered. He will fall down from that position very soon. And by cultivating simplicity, if by chance someone goes to hell, Guru and Gauranga will go to hell to deliver that person because he's a simple-hearted person. So that's the emphasis he's laying on that point. And okay, so since our time is up, so we will just go to the solution part. And so what's the solution to this Kapatya and Pratishtha Asha? So he says, so he quotes a nice verse from Mana Shiksha by Raghunath Das Goswami. So he says, so this verse of Raghunath Das Goswami, it says, Pratisthasha drishta shvapacha ramani me ridhi natet khatam sadhu prema sprishati shuchi retan nanu manaha sada tvam sevasya prabodayita samantam atulam yathatam nishkasya tvaritam ihatam veshayati saha. So as our acharyas give some very strong analogies to describe Pratisthasha. One of them we are well aware. What? Shukarera Vishta. Pratisthasha, Shukarera, the stool of a boar. So here he is giving another analogy. That is Shvapacha Ramani me Ridhi Natet. So he is saying this Pratisthasha is like Shvapacha, Ramani. Ramani means a prostitute and Shvapacha means dog-eating prostitutes. So he says this dog-eating prostitute